My name is Eleanor Grace Whitmore, and I'm here to tell you about the night that changed everything, the night my own family left me to die in the freezing cold. 7 months pregnant and bleeding, while they celebrated inside the warmth of what used to be my home. This is the story of betrayal so deep it nearly killed me, and the unexpected savior who not only rescued my life, but helped me take back everything they stole from me. What happened next? Well, let's just say karma has a way of finding people, especially when you have a billionaire on your side. If you've ever felt abandoned by the people who were supposed to love you most, if you've ever been betrayed by your own blood, then you'll understand why what I did next wasn't just revenge, it was justice. The perfect family. So I thought it was December 23rd, 2023, in Greenwich, Connecticut, and the world outside looked like a Christmas card. Snow blanketed everything in pristine white. In the historic Whitmore estate, my childhood home glowed with thousands of twinkling lights. Inside, my stepmother Vivian, my half-sister Scarlett, and my father Richard were hosting their annual holiday gala. 200 guests, a 12-piece orchestra, champagne flowing like water, and I was being dragged toward the front door by my own father. "Please, Dad," I begged, my voice breaking. "I'm bleeding. Something's wrong with the baby. Please don't do this." My father's face was stone. This man who had once called me his little princess, who had taught me to ride a bike, who had walked me through the gardens every Sunday morning, that man was gone. In his place was a stranger whose eyes held nothing but disgust. "You should have thought about that before you embarrassed this family," he said coldly, "before you got yourself knocked up by that nobody and refused to get rid of it. Vivian was right about you all along. You're selfish, Eleanor. You've always been selfish." I clutched my swollen belly, feeling the warm wetness spreading down my legs. The cramping had started an hour ago during dinner, sharp and terrifying. I'd asked no, begged to go to the hospital, but Vivian had other plans. "The guests are arriving in 20 minutes. My stepmother had said, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror, adjusting her diamond necklace. "We can't have you here, making a scene, reminding everyone that Richard Whitmore's daughter is a pregnant, unwed disgrace. You'll go outside through the service entrance and wait until the party is over." I could die out there, I'd screamed. The baby could die. Scarlett, my half-sister, had laughed, actually laughed. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Eleanor. It's just a little cold. You always were such a princess about everything." That's when my father grabbed my arm, left the front door opened, and the December wind hit me like a physical blow. 4 degrees Fahrenheit. The weather report had warned everyone to stay indoors. Frostbite could occur in minutes. I was wearing a thin cotton dress. Vivian had confiscated my coat that morning, claiming I'd stretched it out with my pregnancy weight. No shoes. She'd taken those too, saying I'd tracked mud through her pristine house. "Dad, please," I whispered one last time, tears streaming down my face. "I'm your daughter, your blood. Mom wouldn't have wanted. Don't you dare mention your mother," he roared, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Pain, guilt, but then Vivian appeared behind him, her hand on his shoulder, and whatever humanity had surfaced vanished. "Your mother died 10 years ago, Eleanor," Vivian said sweetly, though her eyes were ice. "It's time you accepted that Richard has a new family now, one that doesn't include embarrassments like you." The door slammed shut. I stood there, barefoot in the snow, watching through the windows as servers in white gloves ranged champagne floats, as my father straightened his bow tie, as Scarlett twirled in her designer gown. The bleeding was getting worse. I could feel it, warm against the cold. My vision blurred. I stumbled down the driveway, each step agony. The estate was 2 miles from the main road. I'd never make it. My phone was inside. Vivian had taken that too, claiming I'd been wasting time on social media instead of doing my chores. Yes, chores. I'd been treated like hired help since the day Vivian married my father 8 years ago. Cooking, cleaning, serving them breakfast in bed. And when I'd gotten pregnant by Thomas, the kind, gentle carpenter I'd met at the farmer's market, they'd been horrified. Not because he wasn't good enough, but because a pregnancy would expose me to the world, remind everyone that Richard Whitmore's daughter existed, they'd offered me $50,000 to take care of it. When I refused, they'd made my life hell. But this was murder. I collapsed about a quarter mile down the driveway. The world spun. I couldn't feel my feet anymore. The baby, my sweet baby girl, the one I already named Rose, wasn't moving. Please, I whispered to no one, to God, to the universe. Please don't let her die, please. That's when I heard the car. The Billionaire headlights blinded me. A car door opened, running footsteps crunching through snow. Jesus Christ. A man's voice said, Ma'am, can you hear me? Strong arms lifted me. Warmth enveloped me, a coat, expensive cashmere, wrapped around my shaking body. I've got you, the voice said. I've got you. Stay with me. I tried to focus on his face. Dark hair, sharp jawline, eyes filled with genuine concern. Through my delirium, I recognized him. Because who wouldn't? His face had been on the cover of Forbes magazine just last month. Alexander James Rothschild, billionaire tech entrepreneur. At 36, he'd built a software empire worth $43 billion. And he was carrying me to his Range Rover like I weighed nothing. Hospital. I managed to whisper, Baby, I know, he said. I'm getting you there. Just hold on. What's your name? Eleanor. I'm Alexander. You're going to be okay. Both of you are going to be okay. He drove like a man possessed. One hand on the wheel, the other holding mine. He'd called 911, called ahead to Greenwich Hospital, demanded their best of GY and meet us in the air. Who did this to you? He asked, his voice tight with controlled rage. Who left you out there? I couldn't answer. The world was going dark. Eleanor, stay with me. Salvatore woke up 3 days later in a private hospital room filled with flowers. Real flowers, roses, orchids, peonies, their perfume mixing with the antiseptic smell of the hospital. And sitting in the chair beside my bed, looking exhausted, was Alexander Rothschild. You're awake, he said, relief flooding his face. He pressed the call button. How do you feel? My baby, she's fine, he said quickly. Rose is fine. The doctors stopped the bleeding. You had a placental abruption, very serious, but they caught it in time. You were hypothermic, severely dehydrated, malnourished. Eleanor. His jaw tightened. Who did this to you? Before I could answer, Dr. Sarah Chen, my upkin, swept in with a genuine smile. Welcome back, Eleanor. You gave us quite a scare, but Rose is a fighter, just like her mother. You're both going to be fine, but you need complete bed rest for the remainder of your pregnancy. I don't have anywhere to go, I whispered, shame burning my cheeks. Yes, you do, Alexander said firmly. I've arranged everything. My estate has a full medical suite. Dr. Chen will visit daily. You're not going back to wherever you came from. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said, and there was steel in his voice. I know that someone locked a pregnant woman outside in freezing temperatures. I know attempted murder when I see it. And I know that you're going to tell me who did this. And then I'm going to make sure they pay for it. The truth comes out over the next week, as I recovered in the guest suite of Alexander's Westchester estate, which was less a house and more a palace. I told him everything about my mother's death from cancer when I was 14, about how my father had married Vivian just 8 months later, about the systematic abuse, the gaslighting, the way they'd erased me from family photos and holiday cards, about how they'd stolen my inheritance. What do you mean, stolen? Alexander asked. We were in the sunroom, and he was reading through documents his lawyers had obtained. My mother was Margaret Hayes before she married my father, I explained. Her family owned Hayes Pharmaceuticals. When she died, she left everything to me in a trust, $20 million, to be released when I turned 25. I turned 25 last March, and Vivian convinced my father to challenge the will. She claimed my mother wasn't of sound mind when she created the trust. They've been tying it up in court for 2 years. Meanwhile, they've been living off the dividends, claiming they're managing the money for me. Alexander's expression darkened. That's fraud. That's criminal. I tried to fight it. But they have expensive lawyers. And I had nothing. Then I got pregnant. And Thomas, my voice broke. Thomas died 4 months ago. Car accident on the Merritt Parkway. He never even knew about Rose. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'm going to help you, Eleanor. Not because I'm some white knight, but because I hate bullies. And I really hate people who abuse vulnerable family members for money. Why? I asked, why do you care? He looked out the window at the snow-covered grounds. My mother was abused by my stepfather after my real father died. I was it. I couldn't protect her then, but I can protect you now. So let me. The plan Alexander Rothschild hadn't built a $43 billion empire by being nice. He'd built it by being smart, ruthless when necessary. The reckoning trial began in March 2024. I was 8.5 months pregnant, and Alexander insisted on being there every single day, sitting right behind me in the courtroom. My father's lawyers tried to paint me as a troubled young woman who had invented stories about abuse. Vivian wore pearls and cried on command, claiming she'd tried so hard to be a good stepmother. Then our lawyers played the security footage. Alexander had legally obtained it from the estate's security company. There I was, being dragged to the door by my father. There was Vivian, laughing as she confiscated my coat. There was Scarlett, checking her phone while I begged for help. And there was the timestamp, 7:43 p.m., temperature, rough. The courtroom went silent. That's out of context. Vivian stammered, out of context. Alexander's lead attorney, Patricia Morrison, said coldly, your stepdaughter was bleeding and hypothermic. What context makes that acceptable? We also had financial records. Vivian had been systematically draining my trust fund for years: designer clothes, luxury vacations, plastic surgery. Scarlett's business ventures, which had all failed, had been funded entirely with my money. My father had known everything, had signed off on everything. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. ROSE. I gave birth to Rose Margaret Whitmore on March 28, 2024, at 3:17 a.m., 7 pounds, 9 ounces, perfect. Alexander was in the waiting room. He asked if I wanted him there, and I'd said yes, because over the past 4 months, he'd become more of a family to me than my own blood had ever been. When the nurse finally let him in, he stared at Rose with wonder. She's beautiful, Eleanor. She looks just like you. Thank you, I whispered. For everything. For saving us. You saved yourself, he said. I just gave you the resources to fight back. But he'd given me so much more than that. He'd given me safety, respect, a place to heal. And somewhere along the way, in those quiet evenings talking in the sunroom, in those early mornings, when he'd bring me tea and we'd watch the sunrise, I'd fallen in love with him. I didn't tell him. How could I? He was Alexander Rothschild. I was just me. Except he was looking at me now with an expression I'd never seen before. Eleanor, he said softly, I need to tell you something. These past few months, getting to know you, watching you fight for your daughter, for yourself, you're the strongest, most compassionate person I've ever met, and I've fallen completely in love with you. I stared at him. What? I love you, he said simply. I love Rose. I want to be in both of your lives. If you'll have me, not as some rescuer or benefactor, but as whatever you want me to be. I started crying. Happy tears this time. I love you too. I have for weeks. I just didn't think. He kissed me, gentle and sweet. With Rose sleeping between us. The aftermath criminal trial ended in June 2024. My father got 6 years for fraud and reckless endangerment. Vivian got 8 years. Scarlett, who'd been 18 at the time and just following her mother's lead according to her lawyers, got probation and community service. I got my inheritance back, all $20 million, plus the earnings that should have been accumulating, plus damages another $15 million. But money wasn't the revenge I wanted. The real revenge came when the estate went up for auction. Alexander and I bought it. Every piece of furniture, every painting, every crystal chandelier that Vivian had so proudly shown off. We turned it into the Margaret Hayes Center for Abused Women and Children, a shelter, a safe place for people who had nowhere else to go. The grand opening was in September 2024. 300 people attended, real friends this time, not social climbers. Rose was 6 months old, babbling happily in Alexander's arms as I cut the ribbon. And in the back of the crowd, I saw him, my father. He'd been released pending appeal, looking smaller somehow. Older. Our eyes met. He started to raise his hand, maybe to wave, maybe to apologize. I turned away. Some things can't be forgiven. 1 year later, it's December 2020 for now. Almost exactly a year since that terrible night. I'm sitting in the sunroom of our home, mine and Alexander's, and Rose is watching the first snowfall. Alexander proposed last month. I said yes. Obviously, we're getting married in the spring, in the gardens of the Margaret Hayes Center. Rose is walking now, tottering round with that determined expression she gets that reminds me so much of my mother. She'll never know her grandfather. She'll never know Vivian or Scarlett. But she'll know love, safety. She'll know that she's wanted, cherished, protected. People ask me sometimes if I regret what happened, if I wish things had been different. And here's the truth. I wish my family had loved me. I wish I'd never had to suffer like that. I wish Thomas was alive to meet his daughter. But I don't regret where I ended up, because that night in the cold, that moment when I thought I was going to die, it led me here, to Alexander, to Rose, to a life filled with genuine love and purpose. My father's family locked me out in the cold. But fate and a billionaire with a good heart led me to warmth. Epilogue. Thanksgiving 2020 for the Margaret Hayes Center hosted its first Thanksgiving dinner last month. 147 women and children, all of them survivors of domestic abuse, all of them starting over. Alexander helped serve the turkey. Rose sat in her high chair, smearing mashed potatoes everywhere. And I looked around at all these people, these survivors, these fighters, and I realized something. My father had tried to erase me, to make me disappear, to treat me as less than nothing. Instead, he'd created something far worse for himself. He'd turned his daughter into someone who would never, ever let another person be treated the way I was treated. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd tried to call me last week, to apologize, apparently, to ask if we could work things out. I didn't take the call. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes. But as I sat there at Thanksgiving, with Alexander's hand in mine and Rose giggling as she threw sweet potatoes at her daddy, I thought about something my mother once told me. The best revenge, Eleanor, is a life well lived. Mom was right. My name is Eleanor Grace Whitmore Rothschild now. I'm a wife, a mother, a philanthropist. I'm loved, I'm safe, I'm home. And somewhere out there, in a prison cell in Connecticut, my father has all the time in the world to think about what he lost when he locked me outside in the cold. I survived. Rose survived. We thrived. That's the real revenge. And every single day, it tastes sweet.
Because I don't have a husband and kids. You vindictive... Clarissa started to stand, but I held up my hand. Sit down, Clarissa. I'm not finished. There was something in my voice that made her sit. The truth is, I did try to help. I contacted Bradley in September, sent him an email from my work account, very professional, very discreet, suggesting he might want to get his books in order and consult with a lawyer. Bradley's head dropped to his hands. That was you? Did you reply? I asked him directly. Did you take any action? He shook his head miserably. No, I confirmed. Instead, you forwarded my email to Clarissa with the subject line, "Look at Marianne pretending to be important." I saw it. Clarissa CC'd it to her book club, making fun of me for trying to act like a real lawyer. Clarissa had the decency to look ashamed. Barely. So I stopped trying to help. I said simply, I let nature take its course. I did my job, I closed my case, I got my promotion, and I bought my parents their dream house. And Bradley is about to lose everything because he couldn't stop being a criminal. And you, Clarissa, were too busy mocking me to notice your husband was committing felonies. How could you? Clarissa's voice was shaking. We're family! The silence that spoke volumes. You're right, I said softly. We are family. Which is why, for 6 years, I sat at this table and took your abuse with grace. I smiled through your barbs about my age, my career, my life choices. I listened to you tell me I was worthless without a husband. I watched you parade your perfect life around like a weapon to beat me down. I stood up, gathering my plate. But you want to know the real kicker, Clarissa? The thing that's truly ironic about all of this? She stared at me, mascara starting to run. I'm not single. The room went silent again. I'd been dating someone for 8 months. His name is David Chen. He's a pediatric surgeon at OHSU. He's brilliant, kind, funny, and he treats me like I'm the most important person in the world. We're actually talking about getting engaged next spring. My mother gasped. Marianne, why didn't you tell us? Because, I said, looking directly at Clarissa. Because every time I came to a family event, you made it clear that my worth was only in being mocked, so I stopped sharing my life with you. All of you got the safe version of me, the single, career-obsessed lawyer that Clarissa could feel superior to. But you know what? I have an amazing life. I have a job I love, a man who adores me, friends who support me, and now I've given my parents the gift they've always dreamed of. I walked toward the kitchen, then turned back. Oh, and Clarissa, that boutique job you gave up, Mom told me you were fired for stealing from the register. And those fishing trips Bradley takes, his boat is a cover. He's been having an affair with Melissa from accounting for 2 years. I know because she's my client's sister, and she told me everything. The aftermath. Clarissa's face went through every color of the rainbow. Bradley looked like he was going to be sick. The rest of the family sat in stunned silence. I have one more thing to say to the entire table. I love you all. You're my family, and I always will love you. But I'm done being the punching bag. I'm done being the cautionary tale, and I'm done pretending that Clarissa's cruelty is just sister banter. I grabbed my coat from the hallway. Marianne, wait, my mother called out. Mom, Dad, I'll come by tomorrow with the house keys and all the paperwork. We can celebrate properly, just the 3 of us and Marcus. Maybe David will join if his shift ends early. Please don't go, my father said, standing up. I think I need to, I replied gently. But I'll be back. Unlike some people, I don't abandon my family just because a dinner gets uncomfortable. As I reached the door, Clarissa's voice cut through the chaos. You planned this, she said, her voice hollow. This whole thing, you planned this revenge. I turned back one last time, and I smiled. A real smile, not the fake ones I'd been giving for 6 years. No, Clarissa, I didn't plan anything. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences of your own actions. There's a difference. But you knew. About Bradley. About everything. Yes, I admit it. I knew. And I tried to help. But you were too busy mocking me to listen. That's not revenge, sis. That's just karma. The drive home. I sat in my car for a full 10 minutes before starting the engine, my hands shaking with adrenaline. My phone was already blowing up. Texts from Marcus. That was legendary. From Aunt Delphine. About damn time someone put that girl in her place. Even from Uncle Roger's girlfriend Sabrina. You're my hero. But the one that made me tear up was from my mom. I'm sorry we let it go on for so long. We should have stopped her years ago. Come for breakfast tomorrow. Dad wants to see the house. We love you so much, sweetheart." As I drove through Portland's streets, the city lights reflecting off the wet pavement from the evening rain, I felt something I hadn't felt at a family gathering in years. Peace. The real story behind the story. Here's what I didn't tell them at dinner, what I'm only sharing now. The Henderson merger was real. The bonus was real. The partnership was real. The house was real. David was real, though his name isn't actually David, and we've been together for 11 months, not 8. I shortened the timeline to make it more dramatic. But here's what else was real. For 6 years, I had been documenting every single insult, every cutting remark, every moment of humiliation. Not because I was planning some grand revenge, but because my therapist suggested it as a way to process the pain. She said writing it down would help me see the pattern, help me understand that this wasn't about me. It was about Clarissa's own insecurities. And somewhere along the way, I realized something. Clarissa wasn't mocking me because I was single. She was mocking me because she was terrified. Terrified that she had given up her dreams too early, terrified that she had settled, terrified that the life she had convinced herself was perfect was actually just ordinary. And there I was, living proof that there was another way to be happy. The truth about Bradley. The stuff about the dealership, partially true. There was an investigation, but it wasn't as dramatic as I made it sound. Yes, there were financial irregularities. Yes, he was probably going to lose his franchise, but I exaggerated my involvement. I wasn't senior counsel on that case. I just happened to know about it through office gossip. And the affair with Melissa? That was true. Completely, devastatingly true. But I only found out about it 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, and I spent those 2 weeks debating whether to tell Clarissa. In the end, the Thanksgiving disaster made the decision for me. What happened after? The next morning, I went to my parents' house as promised. They were waiting with coffee and pastries from their favorite bakery. We spent 3 hours going through the house paperwork, and my mother cried no less than 5 times. "You didn't have to do this," she kept saying. I know, but I wanted to. You and Dad sacrificed so much to put all 3 of us through college. You worked double shifts, you drove clunker cars, you never took vacations. You deserve this. My dad, who rarely shows emotion, hugged me so tight I thought my ribs might crack. "We're so proud of you, Peanut. Not because of your success, but because of who you are." David, my real boyfriend, whose name I'm still not sharing for privacy reasons, came by later that afternoon. He'd heard the whole story over the phone the night before, and he brought flowers and Thai food. "Your sister sounds like a piece of work," he said diplomatically. "She's complicated, because despite everything, she's still my sister. Do you think she'll apologize?" Eventually, maybe, after the shock wears off and the marriage implodes. I was right about that. The apology. Sort of. 3 weeks later, on December 19th, 2024, Clarissa called me. I let it go to voicemail 3 times before finally answering. On the 4th call. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. No hello, no small talk. "I'm so sorry, Marianne. I didn't say anything. I just listened." "Bradley moved out last week," she continued, her voice thick with tears. "The dealership fired him. The affair was real. It's been going on for 3 years, not 2. He and Melissa are getting an apartment together in Vancouver. He says he wants joint custody, but we both know he'll see the kids twice a month at best." "I'm sorry, Clarissa," I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, hearing your sister's life fall apart is painful. "You're not," she said bitterly. "This is what you wanted." "No," I replied firmly. "This is what you created. I didn't make Bradley cheat. I didn't make him commit fraud. I didn't make you spend 6 years treating me like garbage. Those were all choices you